Yeah, thanks, Bob. Thank you also, Brown University, Heffenreffer Museum for the invitation to talk tonight. And that's a good introduction. I sometimes don't hear things about myself like that, usually. So it's always interesting to hear some of those things. A little dated, but you know, it's still relevant. So good evening, everybody. Sangatiri. My name's Jason Garcia. I'm from the Pueblo of Santa Clara, New Mexico. And my Tewa name is Okuu, and Okuu is the Turtle Mountain, the Sandia Mountains that are south of, that is the south mountain of the Tewa world. Let's see. Maybe this thing is, so you can kind of see where Santa Clara is at. Also, it's nice to have another Tewa in the audience as well, you know, soon to be Dr. Woody Aguilar. And he's from San Ildefonso here. Santa Clara's here. Albuquerque, Santa Fe's over here. It's kind of, KhaPo Owingeh is the traditional Tewa name for Santa Clara Pueblo. It was founded in probably 1400s or so. I know there's probably a lot of archaeologists, anthropologists types in the room. So you probably know the exact date of when it was founded and things like that. So I always put this map up because when I went to school at University of Wisconsin in Madison, you know, people would always say, New Mexico, you're Mexican? No, I'm Indian, I'm Native American, I'm Tewa. So this is kind of a good place, you know, there's a lot of people that don't know where New Mexico is. So this is our ancestral village of Buje, Owingeh is what it's called. Buje is where the rabbits gather. So this was prior to contact. Our people referred to ourselves as Butoa, which is rabbit people. So that's kind of where the name, it was more of a gathering place for all the people, the Tewa, ancestral Tewa people that were living across the Pajarito Plateau. So this, you know, a lot of this is all coming from oral history, you know, stories from my father and his grandfather telling him all of that. So this is located on Santa Clara Pueblo. There's, you know, Mesa top village on top, and then the cliff dwellings, cave 8s on the south side face there. And this is a picture from probably the mid-20s of KhaPo Owingeh. So KhaPo means rose path. So when our ancestors moved from Buje and they came down to the, moved down towards the Rio Grande, Santa Clara Creek was there. So there were wild roses growing along the creek there. So, you know, place names, very significant. I just, real quick, Bob, I mentioned that, you know, my great-grandfather had this huge house in the Pueblo. So, you know, this is the house there, so. Santa Clara, KhaPo Owingeh is really world-renowned, known for its pottery. So, you know, different Pueblo pottery styles. You know, oops. I'm not used to using this. So, you know, water serpent, symbol of water, moving, rushing, wedding, like an engagement basket. So Santa Clara's, I guess you would say, like the quote-unquote traditional style of pottery that Santa Clara is known for is this highly polished black pottery. It's an oxidation reduction process. So when it's fired, the fire is smothered with horse manure, and all the carbon infuses it into the pottery. So the pot would normally be this red, the iron oxide, but once it undergoes the oxidation process, then it has this black finish to it. And this is a melon style, and the wedding vase here with the traditional bear paw on it as well. Again, like classic Santa Clara designs. A couple other styles of pottery is a polychrome here, and that's the style that I work in, is the polychrome, which is using different mineral pigments, colored mineral pigments, and it's painted onto the pottery, and then it's fired afterwards. And then this is a sgraffito process. I kind of want to see how this thing is here too. So this is a sgraffito process where the design is etched into the fire piece. So this has the water serpent, horses, different designs, a lot of water symbols. You know, water is very sacred to us in the desert Southwest. A lot of our songs, our prayers, are incantations for rain, blessings, things like that. A lot of my work is also influenced by my own participation in our Tewa cultural ceremonies and things like that. This is the corn dance that we do on our feast day. Each Pueblo has a patron saint, and ours is Saint Clara of Assisi. And Saint Clara is the patron saint of embroiderers, the blind, and television also. So I use a lot of symbols of Santa Clara in the work, you know, referencing Saint Clara of Assisi. And then on the bottom is a deer dance here from the 1950s or so. So we still do these two dances in the Pueblo. You know, usually every year we do the corn dance there at Santa Clara. Then deer dance, we might maybe do it every couple years or so. So this is more of the traditional style. And so the dances are related to the seasons, harvest season, animal hunting, different things like that. Also evergreens representing life. A lot of the songs are calling the animals, or calling the rain clouds, you know, to provide moisture in the area and things like that. You know, the representations of dance, clothing, you know, some of the belts representing falling rain and other things like that. The sound of the rattles, the shell also mimics the sound of rain as well too. So in terms of influences on the work, grew up 1980s, very heavily influenced by comic books, movies, TV shows, always going to different comic book shows, stores, all those things. And so a lot of it's influenced by MTV, or you know, the MTV of the 80s, music versus reality TV shows. But you know, then now some of that stuff influences the work as well too, as far as popular culture. These are two artists that I really enjoy their work, and Gilbert and Jaime Hernandez are really a huge influence on the work, especially with the Palomar series of Gilbert Hernandez. In terms of where he has this storyline where it covers 100 years, and you practically need a genealogy chart to figure out who's connected where. And so I kind of really like that in the work as far as it influences my work. I was talking to Mark earlier and saying, you know, there's a lot of research that goes into the work. So, you know, it's almost like that in that sense of family history or family research and things like that. One of the Santa Clara artists that's really also is a large influence on the work is the late Pablo Vilardi. So she was a painter at Santa Clara Pueblo, was part of the Santa Fe Indian School studio, and so she was documenting the lifestyle of the Pueblo in the 1930s as she went to boarding school, Santa Fe Indian School, and studied with Dorothy Dunn, who was a white teacher. And basically the kids were homesick for their Pueblo life. So, you know, basically her thing was, what are your parents doing, or what is your family doing at home? So, you know, the kids would usually paint, you know, daily life scenes or ceremonial scenes, dance scenes, things like that. So, you know, I really like in the image where, you know, they're showing different stages of life, corn grinding, and the man's here beating the drum, and then, you know, the lady's nursing a baby over here, I think, and this guy's coming home with a hunt, like a deer, and then they're butchering up here. And then there's just little details in her work too, that you know, there's like a little picture of a man up here on the wall here too, who could be, you know, maybe a grandfather or something like that. But then also showing, you know, that old the agrarian lifestyle that the Pueblos, you know, subsisted on up until World War II. I mean, there's still farming that's taking place still today, but not at the what would you say, dependency as in the old days. But they're still growing, planting, harvesting, all of that too. And then there's little details also where I was saying, she's documenting that changing of lifestyle. So you can kind of see the two older men where they're playing shinny, and they have the older style haircuts, and then both wearing moccasins, and then the two young men with store-bought shoes, and then short haircuts and things like that too. And then even the moccasins and the shoes on the floor too, and they're in the old style of living. So it's kind of cool to look at her paintings. Another one that I've been really looking at, I didn't put any pictures on there, is Gilbert Atencio of San Ildefonso, Pueblo. And man, his stuff is spot on. It's amazing. I need to put pictures on there, but I've been researching a lot of his work lately also. Another potter is my aunt, Lois Gutierrez de la Cruz. And so she's using the polychrome clay, the mineral pigments, using traditional old style Tewa shapes and things like that. And then a lot of humor is in the work, a lot of abstraction also, with the with the eagle here, and then the flute player, and then also the humor with the kasharis, or they're pulling a skateboard and a motorcycle. So just really enjoy the humor, and then also influence in terms of colors for the clays that I'm gathering. So the clays are coming from different areas of northern New Mexico, northern Arizona, southern Colorado. By Moab, Utah, I gathered some clay out there as well too. And so this is my work now. So as far as, I guess in terms of creating, I guess that's probably a good place to kind of segue into is, so my parents, grandparents, everybody since time immemorial, they've been potters. So, it's just growing up in that creative, immersive environment, and just continuing to work, to draw, to paint, seeing their style of, my parents' style was the sgraffito, where they're etching into the pot. And so wanting to still maintain the cultural tradition of pottery, but trying to figure out how can I change it a little bit? How can I use elements from my history, my identity, and kind of move it into the future? So that's where it starts. Okay, I have my Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of New Mexico. I was taking portrait work of Santa Clara people. So I was already starting to go into a portrait aspect. So these are essentially portraits of Santa Clara people. This is the Corn Maiden series. This is, I think it was like a subtitle was like After the Dance. So the young ladies dressed for the feast day, August 12th, St. Clair's Day. And she's standing by her car, I usually say, and there's lots of people in the Pueblos nowadays that have high-end luxury cars, vehicles, SUVs, things like that. So just kind of melding the two, I guess, in the sense where we say like two worlds. We were just talking about it. There's not really a distinction between the two worlds. It's just very intermeshed. The two. There's no separation. There's never really been any kind of separation. So that I like to show that in the work. It's also influenced by pinup culture as well too. Music. I enjoy rockabilly music, and then the abstracted backgrounds on the of the Pueblo with the kiva ladder here. The kiva is a ceremonial place for most of all the Pueblos. Ties back to the emergence. Also ties back to the old pit houses from long ago and things like that. So again, those symbols are prevalent in the work as well. This is the Corn Maiden number 8. So again, showing the cell phone. We all have cell phones. We have the announcement of saying, turn off your cell phones. That's also one of the things that you know, in terms of our ceremonies, we have, you know, huge signs outside the Pueblo saying, you know, no cell phones, no sketching, no photography. So it's kind of ironic to see, you know, the dancer with a cell phone, but then sometimes we go to different areas in the Pueblo and people have their cell phones, or even maybe during a ceremony, a cell phone rings and things like that. So, you know, it's just that, it's also that clash in a sense of where you say, well, it's a two worlds thing. It's not, because like I said, there's a ceremony and then somebody's cell phone forgot to turn off the ringer and it starts ringing, so. And then there's usually the announcement of saying, like, you know, don't bring your cell phones to, you know, these areas or the dances and things like that. So again, showing the, you know, the television antenna, satellite dish, again, referencing St. Clara of Assisi, patron saint of television. Then also the embroiderer, the way she's dressed, her tablita, which is, you know, the headdress worn, which also mimics the clouds, mountains, rain clouds. Then the rain cloud here is, it's almost in a sense become a signature of my work. I started putting it in there to tie, you know, this ancestral icon, a sacred traditional icon to the work. And so I usually put it in, I started putting it in every piece, and then after a while, then like I said, it's just kind of become, it's in a sense, a signature in that sense of, and there's different ways. So I usually put it in the sky with the abstract cloud. Also, color significance also plays a major part in the work as well too. So in terms of there's in the picture previous, so there's 6 directions, 6 cardinal directions, you know, north, west, south, east, up, and then down. So each color represents each direction as well too. So using a lot of, I guess, coded symbols in my work also, relating to Tewa, Santa Clara, and then also different communities as well too. Like I was, as Bob mentioned earlier in my introduction, I'm a graduate of the University of Wisconsin Master of Fine Arts Printmaking program. And so if you look at my Instagram, you look at my Facebook, I'm a very huge supporter of Badger football. So this is my Wisconsin Badger corn maiden. So, you know, and that's one of the things that you see in contemporary native dress, where it's referencing, or, you know, people have the patterns that show their allegiance to certain schools, certain sports teams, and things like that. So, you know, she's got the motion W on there. And then also, again, animals plays a large part in our Tewa culture as well too. This is Bucky Badger, our mascot at University of Wisconsin. But then again, also what I was saying with the color significance of the colors of the clouds. And then also, in terms of my own self, my traditional Tewa name, Okuu is Turtle Mountain. It's representative of the direction south mountain. Then also colors, the color is red for the south. Then also the animal, the Tewa animal for the south is a badger. So the badger is a warrior animal, so there's all these different connections between Tewa culture, between University of Wisconsin, Madison, and then also with Bascom Hill, or Bascom Hall, which sits on Bascom Hill. It's kind of almost like this walk coming up from the river up to the top like that. And that was also a sacred place to the ancestral Ho-Chunk people that lived in Madison. And so there was a mound site, and that was completely destroyed. And then this hall was placed on top of that sacred Ho-Chunk site as well too. So again, just kind of showing the sacredness of the animal, sacredness of place, but then how those places change over time as well too. I have a collector, as having, you know, being a Wisconsin graduate, I have a lot of friends, family that are alumni of Big Ten schools. one of my collectors said, make me a Hawkeye maiden. And I did this for him, and then I went out to the University of Iowa last year and did a presentation, and I was talking about color significance as well too, just like I talked about earlier, of how, the Tewa colors are represented and they have directions and they're very specific in their meaning and in prayers and things like that. And, I mentioned to the guy, I said, just like, the Iowa Hawkeye maiden, she's wearing, yellow and black, but then there's a man in the audience and raised his hand and he said, it's not yellow, it's old gold. So very, very, again, that color significance plays a very huge part in different cultures. So it was nice to, be corrected that it was old gold. And then also, the cell phone as well. So with the eye corn is what she has. So, I usually put the little corn on the phone as well too. And then, this is a fun piece. I really liked it. I even noticed her pin says Iowa on it too. Then just kind of documentation of observations that I see around the Pueblo. Zuni Oil Maiden, balancing the water jar, which is on her phone at the same time texting and things like that. So kind of just also the dualities in that sense of Pueblo culture and 21st century Pueblo, popular culture. We all drive cars, we all work, we all have degrees. We're here at Brown University flying airplanes, things like that. There was a show at the Herd Museum in Phoenix, Arizona that was focused on Legos. It was called Build. So, they had said like, oh, we really like your work, your Corn Maidens, your Tewa Tells a Suspense comic. Can you do something, or we want to use a piece for that? But then I told them, no, I want to make something specific with Legos. Just saw the Lego movie, and Lego Batman just came out recently also. So, I wanted to create a piece that was, Pueblos and Legos. So it was kind of fun, creating that. And again, referencing the television antenna with the Lego antennas. Even the cloud is Legos too. So I had a lot of fun with that. And then again, the way that they're dressed is Santa Clara. The summer moiety is who I belong to at Santa Clara. So they're painted with dark gray paint and then also a yellow paint as well too. Again, color representation, the dark gray, black representing the rain clouds in the summer, monsoon season, yellow, mountains, corn, a lot of different things. Mountains also with the little peaks here, the clouds. Another piece, miscommunication, kind of just talking about different ideas of the Pueblo. Some people are very immersed in Catholicism. Catholicism is very prominent in the Pueblos of New Mexico. Then also the Kiva here, they're all talking on their phones. There's different things of thinking like, are they all talking to him? Are they talking to her? There's communication happening here, but where is it? Where is the lines connected and things like that? I've also been working on pottery as well too. So this is Amazing Fantasy. It's the first appearance of SpiderMan, the Amazing Spider-Man, and using photographs. This is a picture of my dad from the 50s, where he was reading a comic book, so putting family into the work as well too. And then he's kind of in his mind, in the Pueblo, reading the comic book and imagining Spider-Man and the Green Goblin as well. Corn Dancer. Some of the influence of popular culture is coming in movies. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so A New Hope, referencing the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, or actually, technically, I guess you would say Episode 4. So, Luke Skywalker, sunset on Tatooine, he's kind of looking out the horizon, looking at the sunset, so it's similar to that same pose of the young Luke Skywalker looking out. this young man's the new hope for our as we move into the 21st century, where we're still speaking our language, we're still living on our ancestral land base, we still have a connection to our cultural identity, our language, our history, those things like that, and but still maintaining that despite the technology of television, of computers, of the iPhone, of those things. Then again, another reference to Star Wars as well. The late Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. The reference of the hair, the young Hopi maidens with the butterfly whorls, also referencing that as well. Then this is kind of autobiographical, I guess, in the sense of where, as a kid, growing up and playing with action figures and Star Wars and just always watching the movies and being into that. I'm here playing with my toys, and then as I'm playing, imagining the Star Wars characters and things like that, Darth Vader, Luke, Boba Fett, Han, all of that. So I've made a couple different Star Wars pots of myself Christmas morning opening toys and then dreaming of that Star Wars galaxy. But then also the Star Wars galaxy also referencing our own traditional stories, our migration stories, creation stories, things like that, historical events. And so in that sense, creating this world is just as real as our world in that sense. This is Art Nouveau inspired piece with the 4 seasons, spring, spring, summer, autumn, and then winter. So it's kind of cool just to see that transition of the seasons with the budding, with the blossoms here, and the butterflies, and kind of cooling her feet in the pool, and then picking piñons, and then with the evergreen tree there, Douglas fir. Well, again, all of these things used in our ceremonies and things like that. Yeah, that's a nice piece. So as I was talking about the stories of creation stories, migration stories, those things, I also worked for Santa Clara Pueblo, the Office of Cultural Preservation, Land Claims, and Rights Protection. So our job was to regain our ancestral homelands, through legislation, purchase, and on the cultural resource side, I was also working with different agencies, different museums, parks, National Park Service, Forest Service. And so hearing the stories told at Santa Clara and other pueblos regarding our ancestral past, Pueblo Revolt being one of those very significant time periods in Pueblo history. Without the Pueblo Revolt, we may not be here speaking to you, or you might be studying us like how you're studying. You're doing your studies, but maybe the people might not be present, or maybe they might be completely gone, who knows. So visiting all these different sites, old ancestral pueblos, Tewa pueblos, and seeing, I guess you would say, ruins, churches from the Pueblo Revolt kind of started the series Tewa Tells the Suspense. So I'm documenting various historical events like the Pueblo Revolt, other different creation stories. I guess, I don't know if you would necessarily call it like mythological stories, but like this one is a warrior maiden. And when the men were out tending to their fields, tending to their crops, enemies came, and the ladies were getting ready in the morning, and the village was attacked, so they picked up their father's weapons, their brother's weapons, and successfully defended the village. And it's also the story is also represented in Hopi culture as well. You know, they have a warrior maiden, Kachina, where she has her hair done on one side, and you know, when they got attacked, she didn't get to finish the other side, so she's like half fixed. So this is the human personification of that individual, or that story. And then this is a piece that's siege at Black Mesa, 1694, or 1680. We had the Pueblo Revolt. I have the prints that I have here. It kind of illustrates that. So I'll get to that in a bit. But after the Pueblo Revolt, the Pueblos were successful in getting rid of the Spanish out of New Mexico for a period of 12 years. They returned in 1692, where they had the quote-unquote bloodless reconquest of New Mexico. After, there's some people were welcoming the Spanish back, others not so much. De Vargas returned in 1692. He chased several Pueblos up to some of their ancestral Mesa top fortresses or sacred sites. This is Black Mesa. So Black Mesa on the bottom, and some of you may have already heard the story because of Woody Aguilar that is doing his studies at Black Mesa, studying the defensive sites on top of the mesa. So you can see the walls here, defensive walls here. And I mean, it's an amazing place. I went up there, I think about a year and a half ago with Woody, and I mean, it was mind-blowing to be able to connect the history where our people sought refuge and then were able to repel the Spanish, De Vargas. There's trying to scale the mesa top there, and then also the priest. And I created this piece probably in, I don't know, maybe 2009 or something like that, 2010. And, but to go up there and visit the actual site, man, it was just mind-blowing to actually see this is where your ancestors, repelled their enemy. So it was mind-blowing. That's all I gotta say. And so, there's the warrior. He's probably got the wall around him, and he's shooting arrows down at the Spanish as well too. So a lot of it's also influenced, again, popular culture. Conan the Barbarian covers, things like that. So it's very muscular, very strong, but again referencing Conan as well too. So I say thanks, Woody, for taking me out there. So and it's cool also to see. In various archaeological publications, my work is also being used to illustrate these stories, these places, because you're looking in a book and it's the maps, or it's LA site of a map. It's, it's text. So to have that visual representation is pretty amazing to be included in that. This is a story from the after the Pueblo Revolt, or after the again, quote unquote, bloodless reconquest of Santa Fe, New Mexico. The southern Tewas that were located in the Galisteo Basin moved to Santa Fe. From there, then they moved up north, and a group of Hopis came out and said, we're aware that you guys are fighters. We're aware that you kicked the Spanish out of New Mexico. We're getting harassed by our enemies. Can you come out and help us? So, they asked a couple times. They kept saying no, no, no. And then after a while, it's like, okay, what's in it for us? They said, okay, we'll give you land. We'll give you women, men to create families and live out there if you protect us from our enemies. So a group of them went out to Arizona, Hopi First Mesa. And, there's the whole story of the migration that goes out. And got there, did their thing, fulfilled their end of the bargain as far as, chasing off their enemy, and, they were successful, triumphant. In terms of oral histories, one of the leaders was named Agoyotse, which is yellow star, so he's got the yellow star on his shield. also referencing Captain America as well with the shield as well. And then the Hopi Mesa up on top there. And then also there's a lady, you know, there's a lot of women warrior societies in Tewa culture as well too. So, you know, she's got the scalp of the enemy that's kind of showing it there too. So then, you know, the story goes that, you know, they triumphant, the Hopis kind of didn't want them there still yet, despite them fulfilling their end of the bargain. They finally got to an understanding of, okay, we're gonna stay here. There's a long story also of how the Tewas and the Hopi, you know, the Tewa leader took an ear of corn, chewed it, spit it, buried it in the ground. You know, they gave it to the Hopi guy, he chewed it, you know, he put it in his mouth and ate it. You know, the Hopi guys, like, they had also the scalps, they buried it all in a hole. And he's like, well, why did you do that? And he's, well, by us eating the corn, we're taking your language, we're taking your culture, but by myself not allowing you to eat the corn, we maintain our Tewa identity and things like that. There's a book, it's called, I forget, Massacre or something at Awadavi, and there's some stories about this incident. It's by Dr. James Brooks of University of California at Santa Barbara. And so that's a good reference as well too. So a lot of the work is just referencing history using research, books that you all are printing, that you're writing. I'm reading your articles. You know, I just talked to Bob. I just recently downloaded Bob and Woody and Matt Liebman's article about Tewa. I forgot where, you know, I forgot what. The world transforming and things like that. So a lot of that reading is going into there, visiting the sites, talking to the elders of how did this happen and things like that. So in 2010, I did a residency at ASU, Arizona State University, and with the assistance of some grad students, you know, I created the serigraph silkscreen print. I believe it was an edition of 25, I think. And so that kind of planted the seed for thinking like, okay, grad school, I could do this. And just kind of being in that really creative, immersive academic environment. So applied to University of Wisconsin, U of A, UNM, received a fellowship to go to Wisconsin, went out there, and I graduated last year in May with my Master of Fine Arts in Printmaking, and also I visited RISD for a little while too. Like I said, I'm a huge Badger fan, so we're #1 in printmaking in terms of the graduate printmaking. I think RISD's #2 or #3 somewhere in there, so you know, that's a very proud fact that, you know, we were part of this to make it #1. So. I created this print suite. So the print suite I have here is a 7-print serigraph suite illustrating the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. I was awarded a Best of Classification award at the India market this past summer. So it's kind of like the second place, I guess you would say, compared to there's the Best of Show, and then there's all the different classes. So I had gotten a Best of Class for the 2D work that includes painting, photography, all works on paper, drawings, all of that. So there's approximately 12 to 14 colors on each of the prints. I really got into the serigraph silk screens. Just loved it. It's just immediate. And compared to like etchings and intaglio etching, it's kind of more time consuming, almost like the way clay is. And I knew for my MFA work, I knew I wanted to have an exhibition of Tewa Tells the Suspense. I'm always asked, when's the comic book coming out? You know, and my answer is it's a work in progress. But I knew I wanted to have a series of actual images that illustrated the revolt. So and the names of the titles also reference comic books as well. So the Iron Man cometh. When the Spanish came, they were wearing metal. So the term for them is Okuu, which means metal. So they're the Iron Man, literally in that sense. So with the Franciscan priests, warhounds, everybody's always like, oh, I love the dog, he's so cute, but he wasn't there to be cute. So and then also there's a cloud. You can't see it on this one, but you can, if you look at the print, you can see it there. So that rain cloud is in every single piece. And so as forced conversion, Catholicism, repartimiento, encomienda systems were placed upon the Pueblo people of New Mexico, Tewa people. There was a group of Tewa leaders, ceremonial leaders, religious leaders that were whipped and hung in the plaza, the square there in Santa Fe. And so they kind of took it upon themselves to say, if this keeps happening, we're going to be gone. We need to revolt against the Spanish. And so there's the ceremonial leaders. And that first print, the one that said, "Behold Popeye," that's Popeye. And people are like, well, where's Popeye? They always say Popeye, Popeye. And there's a lot of tribal leaders that were involved in the Pueblo revolt. Popeye got the main credit. There was a couple others that got recognition. I think there's like El Tano, or I know Woody had mentioned like Juan El Tano or something. Then there's just a bunch of nameless people that never were recorded. So people always say like, where's Popeye in this? And I said, well, I guess technically this guy could be Popeye because he is one of the ones that was whipped and flogged. And then these guys here on the bottom are converting to Catholicism. And then also this shows part of the ancestral past of Oñate and those guys where, they whipped people. Then they also had cut off the hand of Pueblo people that had retaliated and killed his nephew. So that's kind of referencing, that incident. And so after the Pueblo revolt, as they were making plans, they said, we'll attack the Spanish August 11th. They sent out runners from all the Pueblo, or from Taos Pueblo, where they had their main meeting. And they sent out runners as far as out Hopi Mesas. They had the knotted cord here. And so, he's got the knotted cord. And then you can kind of see the church there. And also the flames representing the future, what's going to happen, but then also referencing the past and things. Then the kiva with the prayers coming out. And then the cloud, rain cloud. And then also the thunder as well, too. I like this one with the blend, too. That's kind of cool. And then the revolt was, the plans were revealed. 2 of the runners were captured, Tesuque Pueblo. The priest from Santa Fe said, I'm going to go check out what's happening. There's a rumbling happening. They executed the 2 runners. Priest went out from Santa Fe to Tesuque, him and a Spanish soldier. And the people there at Tesuque pulled the priest off the horse and, killed him. The Spanish soldier fled back to Santa Fe. So it has that Morion helmet on the bottom there, kind of showing that as well too. And then again, this world renounced, meaning the world of Spanish, of Christianity, of Catholicism. And to conquer a colossus. So this is the actual fighting on that day, August 10th. So like I was saying, it was planned for August 10th. August 11th, but then the plan was revealed, happened a day earlier and things like that. One of the funny things too of my show, my MFA show, was originally scheduled for end of March, but then dates got changed and spring break was happening that same time. So fortunately, I was able to move my show out to the last week of school So I was referencing, saying like, okay, it's like the revolt, you know, plans change, dates change. So it worked out perfectly. And I was also fortunate to have one of my committee members is Linda Berry, who's a renowned comic book artist, graphic novelist, writer, artist. And so her thing was telling me, like, when I first originally planned out the idea of saying like, well, you know, I have a limited amount of time for my show. And she's like, well, you know, you have the knotted cord counting the days. Why don't you do something like that too with a cord? So when I came home for break, you know, I gathered the yucca and you know, made a yucca rope and was tying each knot and everything like that. So, and then the show had the show and then had the knots and everything there in the show as well too. So that's kind of fun to have that as well. So just in terms of the dates changing and things like that. And then this is the priest killer. So the, you know, the message spread out as far as Hopi out, you know, what is that, 300 miles away from Santa Fe? And there was you know, there are 21 priests killed in the Pueblo revolt. At Hopi, there was one of the priests was beheaded. There's actually a Hopi kachina that carries the severed head in their ceremonies. This is a human personification of that event. So, you know, showing the Mesa top church that's burning also as well. Then the decapitated Franciscan head that is holding. I talked to, it was interesting, I showed this at the Herd Show 2 years ago. Or no, excuse me, not this recent Herd Show, but last year. And a lot of Hopi people saw it and, you know, knew instantly what the image was and things like that. Heard a lot of stories about their perspective, their knowledge of the incident. Then also one of my friends who's Hopi also, and he's a really excellent, amazing kachina carver, and he was telling me about, you know, the kachina and all of that. Then he was saying, well, the warriors that killed the priest was also part of the Badger clan. So again, then there's another connection to a Badger as well. So I didn't mention this earlier, but my dad was working at Los Alamos National Laboratory. He always used to go out there for trainings when I was a kid. And I was like 8, 9 years old. He'd go to the bookstore, bring me a shirt. So, you know, be wearing Wisconsin Badgers, you know, at 8, 9 years old. So it's kind of funny how I went there, you know, not knowing that I would be a graduate of their program later on. And so this is, you know, the victory image of you know, the triumphant Tewa warrior with the Spanish Morion helmet on the bottom, and, you know, their victory for at least 12 years. But then victory in the sense of asserting our Tewa identity, our land base, our culture, where we're still here in 2017. So that's kind of the victory piece in that sense. So it's a cool piece. Again, referencing Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, any questions? Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And, you know, Kondoaha, thank you. I think I made it on time, right?